Starting off, we have some unfortunate news to report from the Carolina Panthers is that they fired their head coach, Frank Reich, prior to the start of week 13. And this is a decision that we saw coming after their really rough start. They were one of the last winless teams in the NFL, and they remain to be the worst team across the entire league. And we can point the fingers between David Tepper, the owner who likes to mess around and put his fingerprints all over the franchise. We can talk about the selection with Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud, but the results matter, of course, in the NFL. And I think some of the biggest things that we need to break down is this disparity between Bryce Young and what he's looked and CJ Stroud. Now, two different players, two different situations. My thing is, what did owner David Tepper really expect? He had the first overall pick that he directed the trade up to. There was some conflict whether or not to trade up to 2 versus 1. You want to go up to 1 because you have the ability to pick whoever you want. You're not basing it off of somebody else's decision. Makes sense that they wanted to make this move, but it sacrifices your best offensive player and the pick in 2024. They took Bryce Young, the undersized player who we had concerns with, but he did win the Heisman. Has some upside, absolutely, but in this situation, this offensive line has struggled to create lanes for Christian McCaffrey when he was here, and then, not a lot of talent. They tried to address the offensive line in 2022. Not really best results right there. They signed Adam Thielen, who I think has been probably the best player in this team just because he's been able to be consistent despite the age. I think offensively he's been their best offensive player this year. A lot of holes on this team, and now you've given up assets and very minimal results for that. And Frank Reich, unfortunately, is the guy to suffer the consequences of that. He is known to be a guy that can help cultivate quarterbacks. He got really started when he was in Philadelphia with their Super Bowl run in 2017. He helped take Carson Wentz from a rookie quarterback who had holes in his game to being a near MVP candidate. And then immediately after they win the Super Bowl, he is given the head coaching gig to the Indianapolis Colts. He had Andrew Luck, and then things kind of fell off the wagon there after a revolving door of quarterbacks after Andrew Luck's retirement. And since taking over ownership of the Carolina Panthers, he started off with Ron Rivera as the head coach, and he was fired in the 2019 season. They brought on Matt Rule, and he lasted, 3-ish seasons, didn't pan out at all, and then you bring in Frank Reich and fire him midway through the 2023 year in his first year. And there's not a lot of patience here. You need to let things cultivate, grow. I think the issue was Frank Reich again suffered the consequences due to poor ownership, meddling owners, trying to do too much, because when they were looking into who would be their top overall pick, they were split, right? CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. In a pro day at Ohio State, Frank Reich was there and he was very impressed with CJ Stroud, and he even made the promise that we'll see you in a few weeks to draft you. That obviously didn't pan out, and we've seen the two quarterbacks go basically in opposite directions, and CJ Stroud has become the overwhelming Rookie of the Year candidate, even taking the Houston Texans to the edges of the playoff race. Setting rookie records, while Bryce Young has completely struggled. 187 yards a game, just 9 touchdown passes to 9 interceptions, suffered an injury already, and that already boosts the injury concerns due to his lack of size. We're not sure what we have in Bryce Young in Carolina, but I do think it's an organizational issue. This is a case where there's a lot of holes and they don't have a lot of assets. Whoever is going to take on this head coaching gig doesn't have their first round pick. Gonna have probably a short leash yet again. They're going to need a 2-year turnaround to look somewhat competitive, because the way it looks, you don't have a lot of assets because you sacrifice those to get Bryce Young. And now you got to figure out who it is, who your pieces are moving forward, and then there might be even fire sales to make up and get assets back, because they need younger players. They need to retool the entire roster. It's truly a mess in Carolina.